This is the Almost Daily ZenCast. Hello, and Namaste. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I am your humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Let's get started. What is art? Now that question's deep and hard to answer. We've been arguing about it for a very long time as a society, as a culture that engages in creating art. I think within it, though, lie some even deeper questions. This meme of this Warhol quote triggered me when I first came across it a few weeks ago. It triggered me because I wanted to agree with it and I wanted to disagree with it vehemently, simultaneously, at the same time. Warhol is quoted as saying, "Art is what you can get away with." As a self-described aspiring artist, that is simultaneously an encouraging thing to see and a profoundly insulting thing to see. Art is what you can get away with? The next most familiar phrase is getting away with murder. So, in 2 seconds' time, we've put art next to murder. What? Right? I mean, that's the thought process that was part of my confusion in this moment of being triggered by that statement attributed to Andy Warhol. His art was arguably an expression of that statement. Now, I didn't mean to make this an episode analyzing and debating over whether or not Andy Warhol was a valid artist. I want to bring it back home to a more directly relatable context in terms of my life experience and perhaps, hopefully, those of you listening and your life experience. What is art? As with so many things in our world, we are stuck using one silly little word to attempt to contain, define, describe, and elucidate a massive and very complex myriad of phenomena. There's a reason why the Inuit, who lived who spent a vast majority of their evolutionary lifetime in cold, snowy regions, there's a reason why they have, 200 or 300 words for snow? I'm pulling that number out of a hat. It could be 19, whatever. We have the word snow in English. And I guess maybe to help distinguish, we have sleet. Sleet and snow. Now, you ask your average 20-something if they know the difference, and I bet most of them will waffle on some sort of different kind of snow idea. But most people, and I'm not trying to, criticize 20-something-year-olds. I mean, you ask your average 60-year-old, and they'll probably look you in the face and tell you you're crazy for bothering to ask them. My point is that words fail, and yet we demand so much of them. This statement, what is art, this question, what is art, which Andy Warhol answered with his statement, art is that which you can get away with, there's a conversation that I'd much rather be having. I'd much rather the whole world be engaged in a deep, rich, vigorous, loving, compassionate, passionate, enthusiastic debate over what is art, instead of 90% of the bullshit that we're caught up arguing about. Why? Because I think deep down in the roots of the answers to that question or sets of questions, there's much more to be learned, much more to be inspired by, much more to be influenced and changed in a positive way by, as individuals and as a society, than any of the echo chamber, ideologically driven, intractable arguments of left versus right, up versus down, you versus me, us versus them. What is art? And why am I talking about it? Well, I am a self-appointed artist. I claim to myself and to the world to have an artistic vision. Am I doing a great job of expressing it? Hell no! And I'm the first to tell you. This podcast is the tip of a massive iceberg of interconnected and impossibly huge ideas that my mind, my creative self, whatever that is, my soul perhaps, is struggling to use this less than efficient body to channel and express and get out there. This podcast, as weird and as poorly structured and as ad hoc and unscripted and crazy sounding as it may be, is deeply interconnected to every facet of the art I want to make. How do I explain that? I haven't figured out a way yet. Except that I think in the end, should I ever really create in a final sense of the term, in a finished way, in a I'm done, I have expressed the art within me. If I ever do create all of that, it'll all fall into place and it'll all make sense. This line of thinking, triggered by Mr. Warhol's statement, art is what you can get away with. It has been tumbling and rumbling and distracting me and getting in the way of my work because it sits in the back of my head. This discussion, this questioning, this doubt. I mean, if art is... Let's take it seriously for a moment. Let's pause. And there's a lot more I wanted to address here, but let's just pause and take a moment to really look at that statement. Art is what you can get away with. The reason it's inspiring is because it allows the artist, the would-be artist, the aspiring artist, the you and me and everybody else out there who isn't famous, who isn't an established name in their field, who isn't already getting paid to whatever, puke out whatever it is that they have in their head, right? Whether you like it or not. Some people are out there bringing home the bacon, building huge careers, because they had something inside of them that needed to come out. Now, for those of us who have not achieved that, this statement can sound like a beacon of hope. Oh, that means my art does not have to be this impossible thing that I fear I cannot live up to. My art does not have to be some immaculate perfection that I don't think I'm actually capable of producing. My art does not have to be measured against anyone else's art, because it only has to be what I can get away with. So there's a kind of reassurance there. There's like, hey, if Andy Warhol can do it, you can do it too, right? And generally speaking, one can say that that's uplifting, that that's a positive statement, that that's helpful to those of us who are aspiring artists. Simultaneously, if you take a good, hard look at it, if you really, really let the statement and its unexpressed implications unfold in your analytic mind, in your analysis of it, right? Then it means Donald Trump is an artist. And I don't mean that in the same way someone who's addicted to his charisma and who has bought into all of his lies might mean it. I mean to say that he's gotten away with peddling a mountain of horseshit to enough people that he can call himself successful. And if art is what you can get away with, and Donald Trump, a self-appointed, what is the, master of the deal, a self-described genius, a self-acclaimed artist of business. I mean, if he can get away with everything he got away with before he even addressed the presidency, before he even declared that he would run, he was getting away with a lot, right? Maybe sort of by the skin of his teeth and maybe not really able to keep it afloat, perhaps, because there's a reason why he had to get into debt with a bunch of foreign banks with mysterious and very dubious ties to the Kremlin, and that's a fact. There's no denying that. There are 5 dubious, shady as fuck banks, all of which have direct, verifiable connections to people in the sphere of influence of Putin. So he must have not been getting away with it all that successfully. He must have been treading water or skating on thin ice. I almost crossed those two up. I almost said treading on thin ice and skating on shallow water. But that's my spooneristic, absent-minded professor kind of mind. I don't script these things out for those of you who think I might be some shill. No one hands me pages to read. I just sit and honestly share with you my crazy thoughts because I have crazy thoughts I think I want to share. Is this project art? I don't know. But it's something I feel I need to do. Not because it brings me power, not because it brings me money, not because it brings me fame. Nothing could be further from the facts. In fact, this has been a money pit in this project. I've spent more money than any money has come in because I'm not taking in any money. I digress, though. Reeling it back. What is art? And how do you measure, quote, getting away with it? So the negative extreme means Donald Trump is an artist, and I need to respect that somehow. If I'm going to take myself seriously as an aspiring artist, and I'm going to genuinely accept what Warhol has to say and the implications of it, then I have to begrudgingly concede that Trump is a much more successful artist than I am. I mean, love him or hate him, he is currently the president of the United States of America. Whether you think that's great or whether you think that's the most fucked up thing that's ever happened in America, which it's not, by the way. Plenty of other fucked up things have happened in this country's history. Trump is just one example of one kind of ridiculousness. no matter what side of that argument you're on, as an artist, as artists, if we are going to take Andy Warhol's statement at face value and consider it to be the truth, then wow, he is, to some degree or another, a successful artist. Of what kind? Political bullshittery. Let's call it that. Contemplating that is painful. While I am committed, and have been, since long before Trump came around, I am committed to the idea of choosing not to hate anyone, regardless of whether or not my echo chamber says I should. Right at the very beginning of the Trump campaign, someone made a meme, and I don't know if it's literally a real-life billboard that was photographed, because that's what the meme looks like. I wish I had made this. I wish I had seen that billboard myself and taken the actual photograph myself so I can confirm to you whether it's a real billboard or whether it's just Photoshop. But there's a beautiful photo-ish thing, there's a meme of what looks like a huge billboard. You know, that someone apparently, if it's real, if it was a real billboard, someone paid to put up somewhere in some urban center, in some urban city downtown area. And it's a big billboard. It's painted red and blue in equal parts, right down the middle. And it basically says, I refuse to hate. That's the first sentence. I refuse to hate. And then it lists everybody that this person, this artist who made this image, refuses to hate. And that includes Republicans, Trump supporters, etc., etc., etc. I refuse to hate white people. I refuse to hate black people. I refuse to hate cops. And I'm committed to that, have been, long before I saw that meme. I believe in that. Hate is an ego trap that gets dangled. That's the word I was looking for. Hate is a seductive and alluring ego trap that gets dangled before us constantly, day in and day out. Those who profiteer on conflict, because no matter which, let me put a sidebar here, no matter which conspiracy theory you think is the most righteous, I honestly believe that the truth is completely different than any of those theories. And that at its core, regardless of which theory may or may not be right, the obvious facts of what's actually going on in the world simplify and clarify that which is being done to us by whomever is ultimately actually in control of our societal systems. It isn't one monolithic thing, as I've gone off on in other episodes. So, if you think it is one monolithic oppressive regime, I invite you to consider my ramblings in the other episodes that I talk about this. And I humbly propose to you, it's not. It isn't one monolithic evil thing. It can't be, because look around at humanity. When have we ever successfully achieved monolithic anything? Except literally in ancient times when we built literal monoliths out of stone, we've never been able, for good or bad, for evil or for, divine purposes, we have never, in our known history, now who knows what may or may not have gone down in our unrecognized, unacknowledged, forgotten histories, but that's a topic for another episode. So reeling it back here, given that statement, I think that those who do sit at the centers of power and that seem to, those who are in those positions of seemingly running the system of oppression, controlling the system of oppression, because it is a complex and what's the word? It's a complex and irregular, non-monolithic, non-super uniform system of systems, and the overall result is that humanity is basically oppressing itself through these systems, right? Those people at that top, those people at that center, at that core, whoever they are, whether they're the obvious targets as depicted by the conspiracy theories, or people even further back, hiding deeper in the shadows, there's one thing that's obvious and clear, right? And that's what I'm trying to get at. So setting aside all the theories and the argumentation amongst them, the following, I think, is clear. They profiteer on conflict. Therefore, they are motivated, whoever they are and however they work, they are motivated to perpetuate conflict amongst us. That's why I've always subscribed to this, I refuse to hate. The world tells me I should hate them over there, or this person over here, and I refuse. I might get frustrated, I might get angry, I might temporarily feel the reactive emotion, anger, hate, but I refuse to make the psychological, emotional, spiritual choice of latching onto those ephemeral, temporary, and short-term emotions and making them my worldview. I refuse to be a hater. And so I can't hate Donald Trump. That's my point, right? So zooming back, given all of that, given this question of what is art and what are we doing, why are we doing it, one can look at the political arena and go, if it really is that which you can get away with, then wow, politics isn't really politics. It's an art of getting away with things. Politics, let's agree here, right? Whether you're on the left or the right or the middle or the alternatives or the I don't participate at all. It's 2019, it's almost 2020. I think it is something we can agree on. Politics, as a system of civic organization, is incredibly ineffective and inefficient at achieving the goals that are inherently and obviously for the common good. This is not what politics is great at. Politics is not great at achieving peace. Politics is not great at solving civic issues. Politics is not great at providing for people in need. Politics is not great at protecting us from our own stupidity. Politics is not great at ensuring that our society is healthy and sane and clean and sustainable and good for the benefit of all, right? Politics is not achieving those things. Politics, to the best of my understanding looking back on my adult life and the political events that I've witnessed in that brief time, it seems to me right here, right now, that the one thing politics is actually really good at as a system of systems is helping people get away with shit. Now, some people use the system to get away with things that are, generally speaking, better for constituencies or for communities than not. But that's not the overwhelming majority of political action. The overwhelming majority of political action is fighting other political action. Politics has evolved into an art form of bullshittery, an art form of convincing people to fight each other instead of solving problems. Because if we're really good at solving problems, why are we facing all of these ridiculous problems, and why have these problems been obvious and growing for the past 50 years? I mean, immigration has been an obvious problem that's just gotten worse in the past 50 years. Gun violence is an obvious problem that has just gotten worse in the past 50 years. Now, I'm not here to argue in this episode any of the problems, right? Let's not get triggered, folks. I'm here to ask the question, why do we support that art form instead of opera, instead of experimental theater, instead of music education for kids? We, as a society, as a collective whole, here in Trumptopia and in other places, we pour billions and billions of dollars, uncountable man hours, man and woman hours, work hours, people hours. We allow politics to extract from us money, time, passion, sweat, effort, work, energy, focus. Politics leeches from us everything that we could be using to make art, to improve civic infrastructure, to heal one another, to end wars, to feed one another. Politics has become a bullshit art form of getting away with whatever you can get away with. That, I think, my friends, is why everybody is in their corner. Everybody who's still caught up in believing in politics is in their fighter's corner, cheering for their fighting champion, not realizing that this fight we're fighting solves nothing, achieves nothing, heals no one, feeds no one, houses. I mean, if politics solved the problems that they bitch about, if politicians actually got shit done, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in now. Now, that's a blanket statement, right? There's plenty of diversity and mix of accuracy there. There's people who do get things done. There's lots of people doing good within this bullshit art form. Just like there's great movies, beautiful pieces of cinema that are truly divinely artful within a sea of crap that is basically mindless entertainment that does not achieve anything artistic. So I don't mean to speak in absolute or monolithic terms, but I do think that if politics truly solved as much as it claims it was capable of solving, then we wouldn't find ourselves in the clusterfuck of crazy that we're in now. We would be in some other state, addressing completely different issues. But we're not. We're here, right now. We are becoming Trumptopia. We are becoming a nation not just divided, but with knives at its own throat, with guns pointed at its own head. We are a nation of people that, at the biggest scale of it, at the largest, grandest perspective of it, we are a nation of people ready to go to war with itself and whoever the fuck else annoys the shit out of us, because we want to prove some ideology is better than some other ideology. And yet all of the ideologies have this in common: us versus themism. What is art then? If politics can become an art form of getting away with what you can get away with, what are we to do? It's a challenge. It's a confusing and crazy thing. But I propose that there are real solutions. I humbly suggest to you, dear friends, that before we can begin to implement the valid, the real, the functional solutions that are available to us, we must first acknowledge everything for what it actually is. We must stop arguing and acknowledge that politics is an art form of getting away with what you can get away with, instead of clinging to the belief that politics is the true and righteous and only way to get anything done. And that takes effort, that takes forgiveness, that takes compassion, that takes standing up to the rhetoric. It takes holding those in office accountable for their flaws and their failures, and it takes holding those who aspire to get into office accountable to their promises. And beyond that, I think it requires us to demand of politics that they, as a collective, as a community, right? If we look at politicians as a community of human beings, as opposed to an evil gang of bad guys, or our only hope for solving things, if we demand that they acknowledge their humanity and set down their ideology, set down their party identity, set aside the constructs, the illusions, the imaginary structures that pit us against each other, if we hold everyone to that, ourselves included, right? Ourselves and each other. Let us remind ourselves and each other that in nature there is no such thing as politics. And we are children of nature. So why are we enslaving ourselves to these imaginary things, these bastard children of our ego minds? Some people might say, well, that's crazy anarchist talk. I'm like, no, I'm not talking about... Just like with socialism, anarchists get painted with the wrong color. They get accused of being things that they are not. And they're constantly trying to redefine their own definition of what anarchy is so that people can wrap their brains around it, okay? Same thing. There are no such thing, in this current political climate, there is no such thing as an actually socialist country. Because ever since the Nazis misappropriated the term and then did a bunch of things that were explicitly not what socialists theorized about, but rather went on the warpath and became a xenophobic butchering machine of other people, that's not socialism, right? Socialism, let's not even get into a debate about what socialism is, because the whole point I'm trying to make is that's how they use isms against us. Instead of arguing about whether or not socialism is appropriate within the context of a democratic republic that is supposed to be having free and fair elections, Why don't we just set aside all of the echo chambers and look at each other as brothers and sisters in one massive organic family that are interdependent and intradependent on one another, and this living womb that we are shitting on? Slowly but surely, I think that some of the echo chambers are crumbling, right? Some of the echo chambers that try to be progressive, especially those, but even the ones that are resisting progress, the ones that are about conserving the past or conserving growth, preventing change, on both ends of the spectrum, left and right, people within the ideological constructs are starting to see the cracks, the flaws, the limitations, the bullshit, and the conflict profiteering that everything revolves around. Everything we do revolves around giving the profiteers the conflict that they need to profiteer on. But as we move collectively towards a realization, towards an actualization of this understanding that politics is a bullshit art of getting away with whatever the fuck you can get away with, then we can begin to heal, not only as individuals, but as a collective. And as I've said before, if we can heal, if we can choose to focus on healing instead of proving this echo chamber is more righteous than that echo chamber, then all of the echo chambers will be dissolved through the healing of those participating and trapped in those echo chambers. If art is what you can get away with, then I intend to get away with that, my friends. I intend to get away with busting through boundaries and toppling over ideologies and crumbling constructs to the ground. Not through violence, not through hatred, but through healing. And through the compassionate reminder, the compassionate act of reminding myself and all those willing to hear me out that there is so much more beauty, so much more love, so much more growth, so much more healing that we can be experiencing, that we can be aspiring to, that we can be making manifest than what the echo chambers let us even conceive of. And that if we want to get to that place, we need to topple this system of oppression. Again, not through violence, but through healing ourselves beyond it. And that is what I've got to say about that. As always, thank you kindly for listening. This has been the Almost Daily ZenCast with your humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zappa. Until next time, may peace, love, and grooviness blossom in your heart.